The arrangement, a sleek, modern office. Ethan Carter, a Black American wealthy man, sits behind a large mahogany desk, reviewing financial documents. His assistant entered. "Sir, Mrs. Carter is on the line. She's asking about dinner reservations." "Ethan, cancel them. Tell her I'm busy." "Yes, sir." Ethan leans back, staring at a family photo on his desk. Just him and Sophia. No children. A frown creases his face, muttering to himself, "This family is incomplete." Sophia's mansion, a luxurious, sprawling mansion. Sophia, a beautiful Black American woman, lounges by the pool, scrolling through her phone. Her friend Amber sits beside her. "Amber, you know, Ethan's been talking about wanting a kid for years. When are you going to give him one?" "Please, do you know what pregnancy does to your body? Stretch marks, saggy everything. Not happening. But he's your husband. That's why we're finding someone else to do it for me. No one has to know." Sophia's phone buzzes. A message from Ethan. "We need to talk tonight." Ugh, drama incoming. A cramped apartment in Lagos, Nigeria. Chinelo packs her few belongings into a tattered suitcase. Her mother watches with concern. "America? Do you know how dangerous it is to go like this?" "Mama, I don't have a choice. There's nothing for me here. If I don't take this chance, we'll starve." She hugs her mother tightly, then boards a crowded bus heading to the airport. A dimly lit diner in New York City. Ethan and Sophia sit across from Chinelo, who looks nervous but determined. "You're sure about this? Once we start, there's no turning back." "Yes, sir. I'll do whatever it takes." "Good, because this stays between us. No agencies, no lawyers. You do your job, and we'll pay you what we promised. I just want to make a better life for myself." Then we're on the same page. He slides an envelope of cash across the table. Chinelo hesitates, then takes it. Chinelo undergoes medical tests and moves into a small but comfortable guest house near the Carter's mansion. Ethan checks in on her frequently, while Sophia remains distant. "Ethan, bringing food. How are you settling in?" "Fine, sir. Thank you." "Ethan. Call me Ethan." Their eyes meet briefly before Ethan looks away, clearing his throat. Chinelo sits at a small dining table in the guest house, eating a modest meal. Ethan watches her carefully, holding a covered dish in his hands. Ethan clears his throat. I brought this for you. It's chicken Alfredo. Sophia insisted I bring you something American for a change." "Thank you, Ethan, but I made something already. Would you like to try?" "What is it?" gesturing to the pot. "It's yam and egg sauce. It's a dish from home. My mother taught me how to make it." Ethan leans over, taking in the rich aroma. His expression softens. "It smells incredible. Chinelo, try some. I promise won't bite." She serves him a small portion. Ethan takes a bite, and his eyes widen in surprise. "Wow, this is really good. Why isn't this on a restaurant menu?" "You'd have to visit Nigeria for that." Their shared laughter lingers for a moment, the tension between them easing. Ethan sets down his fork, his expression growing serious. "You know, Chinelo, I really appreciate what you're doing for us. I can't imagine how hard this must be for you. It's not easy, but I've learned that life rarely is. If there's ever anything you need, anything at all, don't hesitate to ask." "Thank you, Ethan. That means a lot." The moment stretches as their eyes lock, but Ethan quickly clears his throat and stands up. "I should get going. Sophia's probably wondering where I am." "Of course. Good night, Ethan." "Good night, Chinelo." As Ethan leaves, Chinelo watches him go, her thoughts visibly conflicted. Sophia stands in front of a large mirror in the bedroom, adjusting an expensive silk robe. Ethan enters, looking preoccupied. Noticing his expression, "You've been spending a lot of time over there." "I'm just making sure everything's going smoothly." "You mean making sure she's comfortable?" "Sophia, can we not do this tonight?" Turning to face him. "Do you even realize how this looks? You, playing house with the surrogate while I'm left here alone." "You're not alone. You've made it clear you want this arrangement, Sophia. I'm just making sure it works." "Don't fool yourself, Ethan. You care more about that woman and your fantasy of a perfect family than you do about this marriage. Calm but pointed. Maybe if you cared about something other than appearances, we wouldn't be in this situation. Sophia glares at him, but Ethan walks away before the argument can escalate further. She clenches her fists, her jealousy simmering beneath the surface. Chanello lies in bed, staring at the ceiling. The room is dimly lit, the soft hum of crickets outside. A knock on the door startles her. She gets up cautiously and opens it to find Ethan. Ethan, is everything all right? Ethan. Sorry, I didn't mean to wake you. I just couldn't sleep. Come in. Ethan steps inside, his eyes scanning the modest space. Chanello gestures for him to sit on the couch. Would you like some tea? Sure, that'd be nice. You're different, you know. Different how? Most people I meet only care about money or status, but you're genuine. I didn't have much growing up. I learned to value what really matters. I wish Sophia understood that. I should go. Ethan, thank you for everything. Early morning in the guest house kitchen. Chanello, wearing a loose dress that shows her growing baby bump, is humming a soft tune as she stirs a pot of jollof rice. The kitchen smells rich and inviting, the aroma of tomatoes, spices, and herbs filling the air. Ethan enters, wearing a casual t-shirt and sweatpants, his curiosity piqued by the unfamiliar smell. Ethan, what's that amazing smell? That, Mr. Carter, is jollof rice. It's a dish from my country. Jollof rice? Never heard of it. It's a staple in Nigeria. People argue over who makes it best, but I think I've got the secret. It looks different from any rice I've seen. The color, the richness, why does it look so good? It's all in the tomatoes, the peppers, and the spices. It's not just about taste, it's about creating a whole experience. Leaning closer to the pot, curious. And what does it taste like? Chanello. Well, let's just say, if you're open-minded, you'll find it explosive. Explosive? That sounds like a threat, not a dish. Oh no, it's a compliment. Trust me, you'll want to try it. Ethan, intrigued but cautious, grabs a spoon and scoops a small portion of the rice onto his plate. He sits down at the small kitchen table, eyes still on the food. Murmuring to himself, never thought I'd be eating rice for breakfast. But here goes. He takes a bite and his eyes widen. His expression changes from curiosity to surprise. Ethan, wow, that's incredible. It's like a whole party in my mouth. I told you, you're officially converted. I didn't expect that. It's like nothing I've ever tasted before. The spice, the flavors, it all works so well together. How do you even know how to make this? My mother taught me. It's the first thing she made for me when I was young, and I've never forgotten the recipe. It's in my blood. It's amazing. I can see why it's such a big deal back home. I mean, I've had American food my whole life, but this is different. Different can be good, right? Definitely. I think I could get used to this. Maybe even have it for breakfast every day. I'll make sure to keep it on the menu then. There's a comfortable silence as they both eat, the tension between them growing as they share a simple, genuine moment. Ethan softly, after a few moments. You know, I've had so many important meetings, exclusive dinners, but I think I'd prefer sitting here, eating jollof rice with you over anything else. Chanello looks up, catching his eye. There's an unspoken understanding between them. The moment feels charged, like something has shifted. Sometimes, the simplest things are the most important. Ethan's smile softens, and for a moment, the weight of the world outside the kitchen disappears. But the moment is interrupted by his phone buzzing. Ethan glancing at his phone. Of course, duty calls. He stands to leave, but his gaze lingers on Chanello. She looks back at him, a slight smile on her lips, as if sharing in the quiet moment of connection. Don't get too used to this. The jollof rice might spoil your taste for American food. I wouldn't mind that one bit. As Ethan walks out of the room, the camera lingers on Chanello's thoughtful expression. The tension is building, and they both know it. Back at the Carter mansion, Sophia paces the lavish living room, talking on the phone with her best friend Amber. Amber, so Ethan's been spending a lot of time with her? Too much time. I swear, he's more invested in that woman than he ever was in me. Maybe you should pay her a visit. You know, remind her who's boss. You're right, it's time she knows her place. At the guest house later that day, Chanello opens the door to find Sophia standing there in oversized sunglasses and heels, looking every bit the diva. Mrs. Carter, I wasn't expecting you. Striding in without invitation. Clearly, I see you were very comfortable here. Too comfortable. Chanello watches her warily as Sophia inspects the room, wrinkling her nose at the simplicity. Cozy. Ethan's always had a soft spot for charity cases. If you have something to say, Mrs. Carter, say it. Just remember your place. You're here to do a job. You're not part of this family, and you never will be. My place? I'm carrying your child. Maybe you should remember yours. Sophia's face reddens, but she quickly masks her anger with a cold smile. Enjoy it while it lasts. Things can change very quickly. She leaves in a huff, slamming the door behind her. Chanello sits down, trying to shake off the unease. Later that evening, Ethan invites Chanello for a walk in the mansion's expansive garden. The sky is painted with shades of pink and orange as the sun sets. This was my mother's favorite place. She used to say the garden was where she felt closest to peace. It's beautiful. You can almost forget the world exists here. They walk in silence for a moment, the sounds of rustling leaves and chirping birds filling the air. Ethan, why are you so kind to me? Stopping to face her. Because you deserve it. You're giving me something I've wanted my whole life, a chance to be a father. But it's more than that, isn't it? Ethan hesitates, his expression conflicted. Finally, he steps closer. You've reminded me what it feels like to connect with someone, to laugh, to talk, to feel alive. Chanello looks up, their eyes locking. The tension is palpable. Ethan, this isn't right. Maybe not, but it feels right. He leans in slightly as if to kiss her, but Chanello steps back, shaking her head. I can't. Not like this. Nodding reluctantly. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to make you uncomfortable. It's not that. It's just complicated. They continue walking in silence, the tension lingering as the camera pans to Sophia watching from a distance, her face twisted with rage. Sophia meets with Amber at a high-end bar, venting her frustrations. So what's the plan? You can't let her get away with this. Don't worry, I have something in mind. A little reminder of who's in charge. Do tell. Let's just say accidents happen. The next day, Chanello is in the kitchen, preparing another batch of jollof rice for Ethan. The warm, inviting smell fills the house, but the piece is fragile as tension is building. Unbeknownst to her, Sophia is at the mansion, plotting her next move. Sophia, on the phone, speaking in a low, venomous tone, I want you to make sure it looks like an accident. Nothing too obvious, but enough to cause damage. I want her to feel that something is wrong, but Ethan can't suspect anything. Mysterious voice, on the other end of the line. Understood. We'll handle it discreetly. You won't have to worry. Sophia smirks as she listens to the details of the plan, her eyes cold and calculating. Let's make sure Chanello knows her place. Sophia hangs up the phone and turns toward the large mirror in the living room, fixing her hair and practicing her smile. She's ready for the next move. Later that afternoon, Ethan stops by the guest house, unannounced. He knocks lightly on the door. Chanello is sitting at the table, flipping through a photo album. Chanello, looking up. Ethan, what are you doing here? Smiling a little sheepish. I wanted to check on you, see how you're doing. Chanello closes the photo album, her eyes lingering on him for a moment longer than necessary. There's an awkward but charged pause. I'm doing fine, just thinking, nodding, his tone more serious. About everything, Chanello gives him a cautious nod. She motions for him to sit, and he does so. You've been so kind to me, Ethan. I never expected any of this. It feels too much sometimes. I don't want you to feel overwhelmed. I just want to make sure you're okay. I want to do right by you. Their eyes meet again. Ethan reaches out, almost instinctively, brushing a strand of hair away from her face. The gesture feels intimate, too intimate. Ethan, please, we can't. I know, but it's hard to ignore what's between us. Before Chanello can respond, Sophia enters, her heels clicking loudly as she steps into the room. Smiling, but her tone icy. Ethan, there you are. I was wondering when you'd show up. She looks between Ethan and Chanello, the tension palpable. She knows exactly what she's walking into, and she isn't happy to feel it. I see you're well taken care of. Chanello, feeling uncomfortable, rises from the table, trying to keep calm. I was just cooking for Ethan. Cooking? I'm sure you've done more than that. Ethan looks between them, sensing the tension in the room. He steps in to diffuse it. Sophia, can we not do this right now? Looking at him. Of course, darling. I wouldn't want to interrupt your bonding time. Sophia's words are laced with venom, and her gaze lingers on Chanello, silently making her point. Later that evening, Sophia confronts Ethan in their bedroom. The atmosphere is heavy, filled with unspoken words. You're letting her get too close. Ethan. What are you talking about? She's carrying our child. I'm just trying to make sure she's okay. Don't act like you're so innocent, Ethan. You've been spending more time with her than with me. I'm your wife, and you're neglecting me. Rubbing his temples, frustrated. This isn't about neglect. You know, I've been dealing with the business and trying to prepare for the baby. Oh, don't use that excuse. Who've been distant for months, and now you're practically... She sneers, romantic with her. You don't understand. I've always wanted a family, Sophia, but it's more than just about having a child. It's about connection. Sophia's eyes flash with jealousy and rage. She steps closer, her voice dripping with poison. I know what you're doing. You think I don't see it? She's taking my place, and you're letting her. Gritting his teeth. That's not true, and you know it. If you don't want to lose everything, Ethan, you need to make a choice. Her or me. Ethan stands in silence, his mind racing. Sophia watches him with a look of calculated triumph. Back at the guest house, Sophia enters, holding a small, delicate box in her hand. She smiles sweetly at Chanello, who is sitting on the couch, looking through a magazine. Sophia. Chanello, I brought you something. Chanello looks up, surprised. She cautiously takes the box from Sophia's hands. Chanello, what's this? A little gift. It's a special tea I thought you might like. Something to help with stress, since you're carrying so much on your shoulders. Chanello hesitates for a moment, then takes the box. Thank you. Sophia leaves, the malicious glint in her eye unnoticed by Chanello, who sets the box on the counter and turns back to her magazine. Sophia watches from the window outside, a smile playing on her lips as she knows exactly what's inside that box. The following day, Chanello decides to make the tea that Sophia had gifted her. She sits at the small kitchen table, carefully opening the delicate box and pouring the contents into a teapot. The rich scent of the herbal tea wafts up, and Chanello stirs it gently, unaware of the danger lurking within. Murmuring to herself, I wonder what makes this tea so special. Sophia's always so thoughtful. She pours herself a cup and takes a cautious sip. A few moments pass, and she begins to feel a strange heaviness in her chest. Her heart races, and she feels faint. She places the cup down, trying to steady herself. Chanello, what's happening? She stumbles to the counter, her vision blurring. As she grips the edge of the counter, she realizes something is terribly wrong. Panic sets in as her body begins to weaken. Chanello manages to sit down, clutching her stomach in pain. Ethan arrives at the guest house to check on Chanello. When he enters, he immediately notices the disarray, the teacup tipped over, the teapot on the counter, and Chanello collapsed on the floor. Ethan! Chanello, what happened? He rushes to her side, gently lifting her head into his lap. Chanello gasps for air, her breathing shallow. Ethan, I don't know. I drank the tea, and then frantic. Hold on, Chanello. I'm calling an ambulance. He pulls out his phone, dialing 911. But as he looks down at Chanello, a wave of horror washes over him. He can see the pain in her eyes, the confusion. At the mansion, Sophia sits in her bedroom, lounging lazily on the bed, when her phone buzzes. She picks it up and reads the message from her mysterious contact. It's done. She's out of the way. A twisted smile spreads across her face, but the smile falters when she hears a knock at her door. Sophia. What is it? The door opens slightly, and it's Amber, looking uneasy. Amber. Sophia, I just heard. What happened to Chanello? I heard Ethan called the ambulance. She's not important. Don't worry about her. Amber. What do you mean? You don't think she'll tell Ethan, do you? Sophia stands up, her face hardening as she walks toward the window. She looks out over the mansion grounds, her mind racing. If she survives, she won't remember anything. It'll be easy to make it disappear. Are you sure about this? What if Ethan finds out? Smiling with confidence. He won't. He'll never know. He'll never suspect me. The camera pans to the mirror, showing Sophia's reflection. A moment of doubt flickers in her eyes, but she quickly suppresses it. Back at the guest house, Ethan holds Chanello in his arms as she continues to weaken. The ambulance sirens can be heard approaching in the distance. Ethan's face is pale, and his hands tremble as he strokes Chanello's hair. Ethan, softly, broken. Please, Chanello, don't leave me. I swear, I won't let anyone hurt you again. I'll protect you, just hold on. Chanello struggles to open her eyes, a faint smile crossing her lips. Shanae, Ethan, I don't want to be a burden. No, you're not a burden. You're everything to me. As the ambulance arrives, paramedics rush in, but Ethan doesn't let go of Chanello. He's too scared, too worried. His emotions are a whirlwind of guilt, love, and frustration. At the hospital, the scene shifts between the emergency room where Chanello is being treated and the mansion where Sophia waits, pacing. Amber stands by, watching her friend. Amber, watching her warily. You can't keep doing this, Sophia. What if this is the end for her? What if Ethan finds out? Sophia, he won't. I'll make sure of it. I always make sure things go my way. Sophia picks up her phone, dialing Ethan's number. When he answers, her voice is calm, almost comforting. Ethan, I heard about Chanello. How is she? Ethan, gritting his teeth, his voice strained. Don't act like you care, Sophia. This is your doing, isn't it? You poisoned her. You tried to hurt her. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm just concerned. Ethan, I'm done with you, Sophia. I'm done with everything. If she dies, I swear to God, I'll make sure you pay. Sophia laughs softly, but there's no joy in it, only venom. Sophia, you think I care about your threats? You'll never leave me, Ethan. You'll never be free of me. As the phone call ends, Sophia's mind races. She knows she has to act fast. She's about to lose control of everything. Ethan's sitting in the hospital waiting room, his head buried in his hands. His heart aches as he waits for news on Chanello. His mind is a swirl of confusion and regret. Sophia's betrayal stings, but what hurts even more is the realization of what he truly feels for Chanello. Ethan, whispering to himself, I love her. Not just for the child. I love her. As the door to the waiting room opens, a doctor steps in, shaking his head grimly. Doctor, Mr. Carter, we've done everything we can, but the situation is critical. Ethan's heart sinks as he stands up, walking toward the doctor with desperate urgency. Please, tell me she'll be okay. I can't promise anything. We'll know more in the next few hours. Chanello, I can't lose you. You've become everything to me. I didn't realize it until now, but you've shown me a life I never thought I could have. Please, don't leave me. Don't leave us. Back at the mansion, Sophia meets with a shadowy figure in a dark alley downtown. Her nerves are frayed, her usual composure slipping. The figure, a man in his late 40s, with a grizzled look, hands her a small package. This is the last time I'm doing this for you, Sophia. If this gets out, we're both finished. Just do your job. Make sure it looks like an accident. You're playing a dangerous game. How long before your husband figures it all out? Gritting her teeth. Ethan doesn't figure out anything unless I let him. If I can't have him, no one will. Ethan arrives back at the mansion after leaving Chanello in the care of the hospital staff. His face is set in stone, his usually warm gray eyes now cold and piercing. He storms into the living room, where Sophia is lounging with a glass of wine, pretending nothing is amiss. Ethan, We need to talk. Now. Feigning innocence. Oh, Ethan, you're back. How's your little charity case doing? Ethan strides up to her, slamming his hand on the coffee table, making her jump. Ethan, stop pretending, Sophia. I know you're behind this. The tea, the poisoning, everything. Poisoning? That's absurd. Why would I do something so extreme? Because you're jealous. You couldn't stand seeing me care about someone other than you, even if it's the woman carrying our child. Sophia stands, her facade cracking as her voice rises. Jealous? Don't flatter yourself, Ethan. I did what I had to do to protect what's mine. Protect what's yours? You don't even care about this family or this child. You've made that clear from the beginning. And you think she does? That woman is nothing but an opportunist. She's using you, Ethan. Can't you see that? The only person who's been using me is you. This marriage has been a lie, Sophia. You never wanted a family. You only wanted control. Sophia's face crumples, but her anger quickly resurfaces. She throws her wine glass against the wall, shattering it. You're mine, Ethan. You hear me? No one else will have you. Not her. Not anyone. Ethan stares at her in stunned silence, his resolve hardening. Ethan, you're wrong. You don't own me, Sophia. And when this is over, I'll make sure you pay for everything you've done. You can't leave me. You just can't. At the hospital, the camera pans to Chinello's hand, which twitches slightly. Her eyelids flutter, and she slowly awakens to the sterile white room. A nurse rushes in, smiling. You're awake. That's a good sign. Is the baby okay? The baby is fine. You're both fighters. Chinello's relief is palpable, but her expression darkens as she recalls the tea. She turns to the nurse, her voice shaking. I need to speak to Ethan. Ethan arrives at the hospital, rushing into Chinello's room. The sight of her awake and alert brings visible relief to his face. He moves to her side, gently taking her hand. Chinello, thank God you're okay. Ethan, it was the tea. Sophia, she tried to. Ethan's face darkens, his jaw tightening. I know. He pulls out his phone, showing Chinello a recording, a conversation between Sophia and her mysterious ally. Ethan's face is grim as Chinello listens, her expression shifting from shock to quiet fury. She wanted to kill me, and she'll pay for it. The mansion, where the police arrive to arrest Sophia. She resists, screaming and thrashing as they handcuff her. Sophia, Ethan, you can't do this to me. You can't leave me for her. Ethan stands in the doorway, watching silently as Sophia is dragged away. For the first time, he feels a sense of closure. He turns back to the hospital, where Chinello waits. Back at the hospital, Ethan kneels beside Chinello's bed, his voice filled with emotion. Ethan, I didn't realize it before, but I love you, Chinello. Not just for what you've done for me, but for who you are. Chinello looks at him, tears welling in her eyes. Ethan, are you sure? After everything? Ethan, I've never been more sure of anything in my life. The courtroom is packed. Journalists scribble notes as the trial of Sophia Carter unfolds. Ethan sits stoically in the audience, his jaw clenched. Chinello, still recovering, watches from a separate bench, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. Sophia, dressed in a high-end pantsuit, stands in the defendant's box, her once perfect image now frayed. Prosecutor, Mrs. Carter, you are accused of attempted murder, endangering the life of your surrogate and tampering with her pregnancy. How do you plead? Murmurs ripple through the room. Ethan leans forward, his gray eyes burning with an anger. Sophia's lawyer rises. Defense lawyer, Your Honor, my client is a victim of circumstances. She was under immense emotional stress due to her husband's infidelity. Ethan abruptly, infidelity? That's your defense? You poisoned an innocent woman carrying our child. Judge, Mr. Carter, sit down, or you will be removed from the courtroom. Ethan glares at Sophia, but sits. Sophia smirks, but it's fleeting. The prosecutor presents evidence, a recording of her conversation with the hired man. Sophia's face turns pale. Prosecutor, Mrs. Carter, is this your voice? Did you not say, make sure it looks like an accident? Sophia falters, her composure cracking. I didn't mean it like that. So what did you mean, Mrs. Carter? The courtroom goes silent. Sophia's lawyer looks defeated. Ethan glances at Chanello, her face etched with pain but resolute. The judge calls for a recess. Sophia's world begins to crumble. Sophia is led to a holding cell during the recess. Her hair is disheveled, her makeup smeared. Alone, she finally breaks down, pounding her fists against the cold metal bars. It wasn't supposed to be like this. Her voice echoes in the empty hall. Amber visits her face a mixture of pity and annoyance. Amber, you really messed up, Soph. You could have just walked away. Walked away? From what? My husband? My life? That woman stole everything from me. You handed it to her. Ethan was done with you long before Chanello came into the picture. Sophia stares at Amber, her face contorting with rage and despair. For the first time, she realizes she's truly alone. Chanello sits in her hospital room, staring out the window, her face pale and weary. Ethan enters quietly, carrying a bouquet of lilies, his expression filled with guilt and concern. Chanello doesn't turn to look at him. Ethan, I thought these might brighten your room. Chanello remains silent, her hands clenched on her lap. Ethan places the flowers on the table and pulls a chair close to her bed. Chanello, I don't even know where to start. Start with the truth, Ethan. How could you let it get this far? Ethan looks down, his gray eyes shadowed with regret. He takes a deep breath. Ethan, I never thought Sophia would go this far. I underestimated her jealousy, and because of that, I failed you. Turning to face him, her voice breaking. You didn't just fail me, Ethan. You failed your child. Ethan's face contorts with pain at her words. Desperately, I know, and I'll carry that guilt for the rest of my life. But Chanello, I swear to you, I'll make this right. Chanello, nothing can bring that child back. Nothing can undo what's been done. Tears stream down her face as she clutches her stomach instinctively, mourning the loss. Ethan moves closer, his hand hovering over hers, but not daring to touch. I'm so sorry. For a moment, the room is filled with silence, the weight of their shared grief pressing down on them. Then Chanello speaks, her voice barely audible. I need time, Ethan. Time to figure out if I can ever forgive you, or even myself. Weeks later, the courtroom is packed once again as the judge delivers the verdict. Sophia sits rigidly, her face pale but defiant. Judge, Sophia Carter, you are hereby sentenced to 15 years in prison for attempted murder, reckless endangerment, and conspiracy. Gasps fill the room. Sophia's composure cracks. She bursts into tears, shaking her head violently. Sophia, no, you can't do this to me. I'm a Carter. Her words are cut off as the bailiffs restrain her. Ethan watches from the gallery, his expression cold and resolute. Chanello is seated beside him, her gaze steady and unreadable. As Sophia is led away, she turns to Ethan one last time. Ethan, please, don't let them do this to me. Back at the guest house, Chanello is packing her belongings. Ethan arrives, his suit slightly disheveled, a sign of the emotional toll of the past weeks. You're leaving? It's for the best. There's too much pain here. Chanello, wait. He steps closer, his voice trembling. I know I've made mistakes, terrible ones, but I need you to know something before you go. What? Looking into her eyes, I'm in love with you. Chanello's breath catches. She turns away, her emotions warring inside her. Ethan, you don't love me. You're just trying to make sense of everything that's happened. No, this isn't just about the baby or Sophia. It's about you, your strength, your kindness, the way you've brought light into my life when everything else felt hollow. Months later, Ethan sits alone in his sprawling garden. The flowers are in full bloom, their colors vibrant against the backdrop of a golden sunset. He's holding a framed ultrasound picture of the baby they lost, his expression a mixture of sorrow and longing. Nearby, a bottle of untouched whiskey sits on the table. Ethan, murmuring to himself, I failed you, little one. I failed everyone. He leans back, closing his eyes, when the faint sound of a car engine breaks the silence. Curious, he glances up. A sleek black car pulls into the driveway. Ethan stands, his heart racing as the car door opens. Chanello steps out, dressed simply yet elegantly, her hair cascading over her shoulders. She looks nervous but resolute. Chanello, I wasn't sure if I should come. His voice trembling. I wasn't sure if you ever would. Ethan gestures toward a bench under a flowering tree. Sit with me? Hesitating briefly. Okay, they sit side by side. The silence is both comforting and heavy. Chanello's gaze sweeps over the garden. It's beautiful here, peaceful. My mother planted most of it. She believed every flower had a purpose, even if it took time to bloom. Chanello turns to him, her expression unreadable. Is that how you see us? Like something that needs time to bloom? Earnestly, I don't know what the future holds, Chanello, but I do know that losing you was the hardest thing I've ever faced. I'm not asking you to forget everything or to forgive me right away, but I'm asking for a chance to prove that I can be the man you deserve. Chanello studies his face, her heart battling between caution and hope. I've thought about it too, Ethan. About us. About what we lost. And I'm willing to try, but I need you to understand, this won't be easy. Ethan her handily. Nothing worth having ever is. Their eyes meet, a tentative spark of hope igniting between them. 1 year later, the Carter estate is alive with joy. Chanello and Ethan have transformed the once empty mansion into a lively, warm home. The camera pans through the house, showing subtle changes, photos of Chanello and Ethan on the walls, colorful African-inspired decor, blending seamlessly with the modern luxury. Chanello sits on a picnic blanket with their infant daughter Amara. The baby giggles as Chanello plays with her, making faces and clapping her tiny hands. Chanello, you've got your daddy's eyes, little one, and his stubbornness. Ethan walks into the garden, carrying a tray with 3 bowls of jollof rice. He looks more relaxed, a permanent smile etched on his face. Earnestly, I don't know what the future holds, Chanello, but I do know that losing you was the hardest thing I've ever faced. I'm not asking you to forget everything or to forgive me right away, but I'm asking for a chance to prove that I can be the man you deserve. Chanello studies his face, her heart battling between caution and hope. I've thought about it too, Ethan. About us. About what we lost. And I'm willing to try, but I need you to understand, this won't be easy. Ethan her handily. Nothing worth having ever is. Their eyes meet, a tentative spark of hope igniting between them. 1 year later, the Carter estate is alive with joy. Chanello and Ethan have transformed the once empty mansion into a lively, warm home. The camera pans through the house, showing subtle changes, photos of Chanello and Ethan on the walls, colorful African-inspired decor, blending seamlessly with the modern luxury. Chanello sits on a picnic blanket with their infant daughter Amara. The baby giggles as Chanello plays with her, making faces and clapping her tiny hands. Chanello, you've got your daddy's eyes, little one, and his stubbornness. Ethan walks into the garden, carrying a tray with 3 bowls of jollof rice. He looks more relaxed, a permanent smile etched on his face. Speaking of stubbornness, I finally perfected the recipe, jollof rice a la Ethan Carter. Chanello, let me guess, too much tomato paste again? Hey, I'll have you know this batch is chef approved. He sits beside her, placing the tray down. Chanello tastes the rice and raises an eyebrow. Okay, not bad, but you're still no match for me. I'm fine with that, as long as you're stuck with me. They share a tender kiss, their love evident in the way they look at each other. Baby Amara claps her hands, making them laugh. Later, the 3 of them walk through the garden. Ethan carries Amara on his shoulders while Chanello holds his hand. They stop near the tree where they had their first meaningful conversation. Ethan, remember this spot? Remember this spot? How could I forget? It's where you first told me about your mother, about wanting a family. And now we have one. Chanello leans into him, her heart full. In a stark prison courtyard, Sophia sits on a weathered bench, her once polished demeanor replaced by a hardened, weary expression. A fellow inmate approaches. Inmate, so how's it feel to be dethroned? Queen? Sophia, walk away. The inmate laughs and leaves. Sophia clenches her fists, her mind drifting back to her former life. The laughter of Chanello and Ethan haunts her thoughts. She closes her eyes, her regret visible but unspoken. Ethan and Chanello host a small dinner with close friends and family. The dining table is adorned with candles and flowers, the atmosphere warm and inviting. Guests chat and laugh, celebrating the couple's new beginning. Amber, to Ethan and Chanello. A love story that proves even the messiest beginnings can lead to the happiest endings. Everyone cheers. Ethan takes Chinello's hand under the table, squeezing it gently. Ethan, whispering to her, I never thought I'd find peace after everything, but you're my peace. And you're mine.
Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the Surrogate Bond, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Tale of the Moonlight for more heartfelt stories. Turn on notifications so you never miss an episode. We're grateful to have you on this journey. See you in the next series.